You've heard of Atlantis, the legendary city said to have vanished beneath the waves. But what if I told you it might not be a myth? And even more shocking, Atlantis isn't the only ancient city lost to the sea. There are dozens of underwater ruins all around the world that challenge everything we think we know about history. The mythological sunken city of Dwarka in India, to the mysterious ruins beneath Lake Van in Turkey, from a submerged Stonehenge in Lake Michigan, to entire cities swallowed by the sea in China, Egypt, Greece, and beyond. These places aren't just legends, they're real places being discovered by archaeologists right now. Underwater archaeology is unlocking secrets once thought lost forever, like the mind blowing Antikythera mechanism, an ancient machine centuries ahead of its time. And with every new discovery, we're forced to ask, what else is hiding beneath the waves? In this video, we're diving into the world of sunken cities, not just Atlantis, but the global story of civilizations lost to time and water. And some of what we found might just rewrite history. First up is the most recently submerged city on our list, the Lion City, also known as Shi Cheng. Hidden beneath China's Qiandao Lake, this ancient city dates back at least 1400 years, with some evidence suggesting it may have been built as early as 25 AD. It was submerged in 1959 when China constructed a hydroelectric dam, forcing around 300,000 residents to relocate. After that, it was largely forgotten for over half a century, until divers rediscovered it. Remarkably, the entire city remains intact: temples, arches, houses, roads, and even its iconic lion carvings. Today, Shi Cheng has become a fascinating tourist destination and a deep water diving spot, though it's only accessible to experienced divers. Often called China's Atlantis, the underwater city is as haunting as it is beautiful. Across the ocean in Australia, archaeologists have begun exploring the vast continental shelf that now lies beneath the waves. And they've already uncovered some fascinating artifacts. Human history on this continent stretches back at least 65,000 years, deep into prehistory. But what many people don't realize is that at the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, rising sea levels swallowed nearly a third of Australia's landmass. In some regions, the shoreline would have extended 100 miles further out than it does today. And since we know that people were living there at that time, it stands to reason that some of their settlements now rest beneath the sea. With that in mind, archaeologists began scanning the submerged continental shelf using LiDAR, sonar, and other advanced technologies, then diving to investigate the sites that showed promise. In the Cape Brughere's Channel off Australia's northwest coast, they found what they were looking for: unmistakable signs of ancient human life. Among the discoveries were stone tools used for cutting, hammering, and grinding, even a grindstone itself. Radiocarbon dating and geological evidence suggest that the site is at least 7,000 years old. For years, Researchers like Graham Hancock have suggested that if we search the world's submerged continental shelves, we'll uncover evidence of humanity's deep and forgotten past. And this discovery lends weight to that idea. While it doesn't reveal a lost advanced civilization, it does confirm that vast portions of our history still lie hidden beneath the waves. The site here is now recognized as the first known marine archaeological site in the tropics older than 5,000 years, and it's likely just the beginning. The world's submerged continental shelves cover an area roughly equal to the size of Africa. That's an entire lost landscape, a whole continent's worth, a forgotten world we're only beginning to explore. And Australia isn't alone. As scientists continue to search beneath the seas, they're finding evidence of other ancient settlements, entire communities that once stood above water and now rest on the ocean floor. Off the coast of Israel, near Mount Carmel, lies one of the most remarkable examples. Off the coast of Israel, near Mount Carmel, lies one of the most remarkable underwater archaeological regions in the world. Here, beneath the Mediterranean waves, archaeologists have discovered a dense cluster of Neolithic settlements, and even the remains of what is believed to be the world's oldest known seawall. Built around 7,000 years ago, it likely protected the ancient settlement of Tel Rise from the rising sea levels that were beginning to reshape the coastlines of the world. Just a few hundred meters away, about 30 to 40 feet below the surface, lies another extraordinary site, Atlit-Yam. Radiocarbon dating shows that it was first inhabited around 8,100 years ago and submerged roughly 1,000 years later. What researchers have found there offers a hauntingly vivid glimpse into the life of the early Neolithic period. Among the discoveries are the earliest known signs of agriculture and animal herding in the region. Stone tools, fish hooks, a stone well 18 feet deep, and vast quantities of fish, goat, and cattle bones. But perhaps most astonishing are the human remains. Atlit-Yam is the only underwater archaeological site in the Mediterranean that contains in situ human burials, at least 90 of them, preserved exactly where they were laid to rest thousands of years ago. These remains have provided invaluable insight into the diet, health, and daily lives of the people who once lived along this now drowned coast. Yet one feature stands to me above all others: a semicircle of megalithic stones arranged around what was once a freshwater spring. Archaeologists believe this may have been a ritual site, a place of ceremony or worship. And its design is strikingly similar to other ancient stone circles around the world. Finds like these remind us that the rise of the seas didn't just reshape coastlines, it erased entire chapters of our shared human story. Beneath the waters off Israel, just as in China, India, and Australia, we're uncovering the echoes of civilizations that once flourished, adapted, and ultimately vanished beneath the waves. Discoveries like Atlit-Yam and Tel Rise show that ancient coastal settlements weren't isolated. They were part of a global story unfolding at the end of the Ice Age, when rising seas transformed the world. From the Mediterranean to the Pacific, the same pattern appears again and again. Entire communities lost beneath the water, their stone structures still standing in the deep. And this story isn't limited to the Old World. Even across the ocean, beneath the cold waves of North America's Great Lakes, we find another mysterious reminder of that distant past: a submerged stone circle resting at the bottom of Lake Michigan. That's right, Beneath the waters of Lake Michigan lies a mysterious megalithic stone circle. Believed to be around 9,000 years old, this underwater formation features an outer ring about 40 feet wide, an inner circle roughly half that size, and even a line of stone stretching over a mile long. One rock may even bear the carving of a mastodon. The site was discovered by underwater archaeologist Mark Hawley in the Grand Traverse Bay, and it's since sparked fascination and debate. While the stones are smaller than those at England's Stonehenge, they may actually be far older. As for their purpose, no one is quite sure. Some researchers think it might have been an ancient astronomical calendar, while others suggest it could have been part of a hunting structure used to funnel animals into traps. Both were common in the ancient world. For now, the site's origins remain an open mystery at the bottom of the lake. Next on my list of sunken ruins is a city spoken of by the ancient Greek historians Strabo, Diodorus, and even Herodotus himself. That city was Heracleion, known to the Egyptians as Thonis. Once a thriving harbor near the mouth of the Nile, it was a gateway between Egypt and the Mediterranean world, a place of trade, wealth, and worship. Pilgrims came from across the land to visit its sanctuaries and temples, and merchants filled its docks with ships from distant shores. But sometime around 100 BC, the ground beneath Heracleion began to give way. The soft delta soil liquefied, a slow motion catastrophe that caused entire sections of the city to sink into the sea. By the 8th century AD, it was completely abandoned, lost to both water and memory. Over time, Heracleion faded into legend, and many came to believe it never existed at all. For nearly 1,200 years, the city lay undisturbed on the seafloor, until the early 2000s, when a team of underwater archaeologists led by Frank Godio finally rediscovered it. It took 5 years to find it after conducting extensive research to narrow down the search area. And when they did, what they found was astonishing. Among the ruins were colossal statues, coins and jewelry preserved in the silt, fragments of temples, and stone inscriptions, including a stele that proved once and for all that Thonis and Heracleion were the same city. They also uncovered wooden furniture, weapons, and the largest collection of ancient shipwrecks ever found. And even now, archaeologists estimate that only about 5% of the site has even been excavated. Discoveries like this remind us why we shouldn't dismiss the idea of lost cities still waiting to be found beneath the waves. Even when we know where to look, underwater archaeology is slow, complex, and incredibly expensive. Every dive is a battle against time, visibility, and the elements. So when people say, if Atlantis or other lost civilizations were real, we would have found them by now. They often underestimate just how vast our oceans are and how difficult it is to search them. For anyone curious about these challenges, I highly recommend Graham Hancock's book, Underworld. It is a fascinating look at the science, patience, and perseverance required to uncover humanity's sunken past. And as for Heracleion, it's only just beginning to share its secrets. With more than 95% of the city still buried beneath the sea, I have no doubt that this site will continue revealing extraordinary discoveries for years to come. Across the Mediterranean, off the coast of Laconia in southern Greece, lies another remarkable city lost to the waves, Pavlopetri. The name literally translates to Paul's Stone, a reference to St. Paul, though the city itself was already incredibly ancient long before his time. Its origins stretch back to around 3500 BC, and artifacts from the site reveal continuous occupation through the Neolithic, Chalcolithic, and Bronze Ages, and spanning the great Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations. Pavlopetri was finally submerged around 1000 BC, yet its streets, courtyards, and buildings remain astonishingly well preserved, offering an unprecedented glimpse into the daily life in the ancient Aegean world. This makes it one of the oldest known submerged cities on Earth, perhaps the oldest. Some have speculated that Pavlopetri's fate may have inspired the legend of Atlantis. While that connection is doubtful, the city still offers a hauntingly beautiful example of a world lost to the sea. As archaeologist Elias Spondylis, who worked on the site, explained, it is a rare find and it is significant because as a submerged site, it was never reoccupied and therefore represents a frozen moment of the past. Pavlopetri's submergence was caused by a combination of rising sea levels and tectonic shifts that gradually pulled the land beneath the water. The site was rediscovered in the 1960s, and excavations have continued ever since. Underwater archaeologist Dr. John Henderson from the University of Nottingham described it best. This site is unique in that we have almost the complete town plan. The main street, domestic buildings, courtyards, rock-cut tombs, and what appear to be religious buildings, clearly visible on the seabed. Equally, as a harbor settlement, the study of the archaeological material we have recovered will be extremely important in terms of revealing how maritime trade was conducted and managed in the Bronze Age. Pavlopetri gives us a rare, almost timeless view into a world that vanished thousands of years ago, a civilization literally frozen beneath the sea, and it's not alone. Far to the east, along the coast of India, lies another city said to have suffered the same fate. A city spoken of in sacred texts, whispered through the ages as both legend and history. A place said to have been founded by a god and swallowed by the ocean in a single night. The city of Dwarka. The story of Atlantis might have come from ancient Greece, but India has its own legend of a lost city beneath the sea. Dwarka. Often called the Indian Atlantis, this ancient city is mentioned in several sacred Hindu texts, including the Mahabharata and the Puranas. According to tradition, Dwarka was founded by Lord Krishna himself, and after his death the city was swallowed by the ocean. As the Vishnu Purana records, on the same day that Krishna departed from the earth, the dark-bodied Kali age set in. The ocean rose and inundated the whole of Dwarka. Based on these texts, the age of Kali began in the year 3102 BC, which would place Dwarka's submergence around that same time, making it potentially the oldest known underwater city in the world, thousands of years before Pavlopetri. Though archaeological findings suggest a later date, closer to 1500 BC. That still makes it incredibly ancient. Today, a modern city, also named Dwarka, stands along India's coast, near where the ancient city is believed to have once stood. It's one of Hinduism's 7 sacred cities and attracts pilgrims from across the world, especially devotees of Krishna. But that raises the question, what happened to the original Dwarka? Was it simply rebuilt over time? Or did it truly sink beneath the waves as the legends claim? For thousands of years, the question went unanswered. Then, in the 1930s, archaeologists began searching the sea floor near the modern city, and eventually they found something. Official excavations began in 1963, and between 1983 and 1990, A team led by archaeologist S.R. Rao conducted detailed studies of the underwater ruins. In their report, Further Excavations of the Submerged City of Dwarka, they concluded that the site matched the descriptions of the ancient city from the Mahabharata. They wrote, "The general layout of the city of Dwarka described in ancient texts agrees with that of the submerged city discovered." And in their conclusion, the available archaeological evidence from onshore and offshore excavations confirms the existence of a city-state with a couple of satellite towns in 1500 BC. That they were submerged by the sea is also proved. The Mahabharata and Puranas refer to the submergence of Dwarka and no other city. It is therefore reasonable to conclude that the structural remains and antiquities found seaward of the area mentioned in the epic are of the city of Dwarka of the Mahabharata age. This discovery has turned myth into history. And that's really the theme that keeps emerging, turning myth into history. We've seen it time and time again. Legends dismissed as fantasy, only to be rediscovered in the sands or depths of time. Yet when someone mentions Atlantis today, they're often met with skepticism or ridicule. But perhaps those skeptics haven't heard about the many ancient cities once thought to be myths, until we found them underwater. I hadn't, not until recently, and that's exactly why I made this video. Atlantis doesn't stand alone. It's one of many lost cities from humanity's deep past. And once you start to see that pattern, the idea of Atlantis being real doesn't seem so far-fetched. It starts to feel like a mystery worth investigating. Before we turn our gaze to Atlantis, there's one more site that demands our attention, a discovery deep in the heart of eastern Turkey. Here lies Lake Van, an vast inland sea surrounded by mountains and ancient ruins that speak to civilizations long forgotten. The region has always been mysterious, but in 2017 that mystery deepened even further. A team led by photographer Thonis-Heracleion dove beneath the lake's surface and uncovered something astonishing: the remains of what appears to be a massive underwater fortress. These ruins are not only among the most recently discovered, but also among the deepest ever found. Built from precision-cut megalithic stone blocks, the same kind seen in the enigmatic ruins that dot the surrounding landscape, the structure stands as a silent monument to a lost chapter of human history. Some of the world's most impressive ancient stonework can be found in this region, and these submerged walls seem to belong to that same forgotten age. The mystery, however, runs deep. Archaeologists and geologists have yet to agree on when the fortress was submerged. Estimates range from anywhere from 14,000 years ago to as recent as 600 years ago. But geological evidence suggests something entirely different. Perhaps a powerful event, roughly 12,000 years ago, when a nearby volcano erupted, cutting off Lake Van's natural outlet and causing the waters to rise dramatically. If true, if this was the time when it was actually submerged, that would mean that this city was swallowed by the lake at the end of the last ice age. The same period that saw coastlines vanish and entire civilizations disappear beneath the rising seas. In a recent expedition, researchers diving on the site documented something remarkable: a flower of life symbol carved into one of the megalithic blocks, and perhaps other discoveries that have yet to be revealed. Its presence hints at a level of sophistication and symbolism that challenges conventional timelines. Skeptics argue that the fortress could be of medieval or Eurasian origin, and there is evidence to support that, including some blocks which appear to have a script on them similar to Arabic. But I can't help but thinking of Göbekli Tepe. When it was first discovered, many dismissed it as too advanced to be truly ancient. Yet, when excavations finally began, it shattered every expectation, proving to be thousands of years older than anyone imagined. The oldest ruins ever discovered. The same could very well be true here. This also proved that there was a very ancient civilization in eastern Turkey, not far from Lake Van, and that they were capable of creating megalithic architecture. However, I personally don't think that the same people who built Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe also built the ruins in Lake Van, because the style of stonework and the symbolism seem to be very different. And if that's the case, then Lake Van may not just be home to a sunken fortress, but to the remnants of yet another lost civilization. And speaking of lost civilizations, there's one story that has captivated the world for over 2 millennia. A tale of an island empire said to have vanished beneath the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. The legend of Atlantis. For many, that name conjures images of crystal pyramids, lost technologies, and the fringe ideas of the New Age movement. But the truth is, the story of Atlantis is far, far older than any of that. It reaches all the way back to the roots of Western civilization itself, to Plato. It was Plato who first introduced the tale in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written over 2,000 years ago. And according to him, this wasn't just a story, it was history, preserved through generations and passed down from the ancient world. Plato writes about Atlantis, "For it is related in our records how you once upon a time your state stayed the course of a mighty host, which, starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, was insolently advancing to attack the whole of Europe, and Asia to boot. For the ocean there was at that time navigable. For in front of the mouth which you Greeks call the Pillars of Heracles, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together. And it was possible for the travelers of that time to cross from it to the other islands, and from the islands to the whole of the continent over against them, which encompasses that veritable ocean. For all that we have here, lying within the mouth of which we speak, is evidently a haven, having a narrow entrance, but that yonder is a real ocean, and the land surrounding it may most rightly be called, in the fullest and truest sense, a continent. Now, in this island of Atlantis, there existed a confederation of kings, of great and marvelous power, which held sway over all the island, and over many other islands and parts of the continent." And he also talks about its destruction. "But afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea. For which reason the sea in those parts is impassable and impenetrable, because there is a shoal of mud in the way, and this was caused by the subsidence of the island." But Plato wasn't the only ancient Greek to write about Atlantis. In his commentary on Plato's Timaeus, Proclus writes that an island of such nature and size once existed is evident from what is said by certain authors who investigated the things around the outer sea. For according to them, there were 7 islands in that sea in their time, sacred to Persephone, and also 3 others of enormous size, one of which was sacred to Hades, another to Ammon, and another one between them to Poseidon, the extent of which was 1,000 stadia. And the inhabitants of it, they add, preserved the remembrance from their ancestors of the immeasurably large island of Atlantis, which had really existed there, and which for many ages had reigned over all the islands in the Atlantic Sea, and which itself had likewise been sacred to Poseidon. According to Plato, the legend of Atlantis wasn't his own invention. It was a story passed down through generations of his family. He claimed that his ancestor Solon had learned of Atlantis from Egyptian priests at a temple in the ancient city of Sais during his travels around 600 BC. The priests told Solon that the catastrophe had taken place roughly 9,000 years earlier, placing the fall of Atlantis around 9600 BC. It's interesting to note that while Diodorus Siculus recounts that Sais was built before the deluge, and while all Greek cities were destroyed, it and other Egyptian cities survived. And that date of 9600 BC is striking because it coincides with the end of the Younger Dryas, a period of sudden global warming when massive ice sheets melted, sea levels rose dramatically, and the world's climate changed almost overnight. It was an age of chaos, violent storms, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and possibly even comet impacts or solar flares that scarred the planet. If there was ever a time when an ancient civilization could have been wiped from the face of the earth, inspiring global flood myths and the legend of Atlantis, it was then. But does that mean that Atlantis existed exactly as Plato described it? A sprawling, advanced empire destroyed in a single night and day of misfortune? Not necessarily. Like so many other legends of lost cities, the story may have grown over centuries, mixing myth and memory. The cities of Dwarka, Heracleion, and others all show that myths often begin with a kernel of truth. Real places, real events wrapped in layers of legend. And Atlantis may be no different. What's exciting is that we may soon have new clues. Recently, researchers announced the discovery of previously unknown underwater ruins off the coast of Cadiz, Spain, precisely where Plato described Atlantis to be. Early reports suggest the site's layout bears a striking resemblance to his description, including the concentric circular walls and channels between them. This discovery is the focus of an upcoming documentary called Atlantica, which claims to present definitive proof of Atlantis' existence.
If anyone had told me 6 years ago that we would go in search of Atlantis, I would have said they were crazy. And yet, here we are, knowing what we know. Not a myth, not a legend. Atlantis was real. The lost empire Plato described in such precise detail actually existed.
That is a bold claim, and one which I am eager to see tested. There's a link in the description for the trailer for those interested. For thousands of years, humanity has told stories of lost civilizations, great cities swallowed by the sea and forgotten by time. Yet again and again, what begins as myth often ends as history. So maybe, just maybe, the story of Atlantis isn't a fantasy after all. Maybe it's the memory of something our ancestors witnessed, a world before ours, erased by a cataclysm we're only beginning to understand. And if that's true, then the legend of Atlantis isn't just a story about a city lost beneath the waves. It's a reminder of how fragile civilization really is, and how easily even the greatest of worlds can vanish into myth. If you enjoyed this dive into ancient mysteries, check out my other videos exploring lost cities, forgotten civilizations, and the mysteries of the ancient past. Please also like the video, comment if you learned anything or if I got something wrong, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. and thank you for watching.